Well, the first big betting race of the jump season is the Paddy Power Gold Cup at Cheltenham on November the 13th. And here to have an early look at the race, I've been joined by Ed Quigley and Nick Watts, fresh from success in the Coral Naps competition with the RFO. Nick, we'll start with the favourite, Long Run, the youngest horse in the race, but going to have a big weight. Coming here under a bit of a cloud after disappointing in the RSA last time out.
Yeah, slightly. I think what you've got to remember with this horse, he's still very young. I think he's only 5 years of age, so what he's achieved already has been immense. I think we're still finding out about this horse, and I think Nicky Henderson is to a degree as well. I mean, he went to the Feltham and absolutely hacked up last season. Then he's brought him back to 2 miles for the Kingmaker at Warwick, which he won too. So Henderson's probably wondering, is he an Arkle horse, is he an RSA chase horse? As it was, he went for the RSA chase, and it looks as though he didn't quite get home. He's got a lot of class, this horse, and it's a funny thing to say, but I almost fancy him more for the King George than I do this race. Even if he got beat here, it probably wouldn't put me off having a look at him for the King George, because obviously on his performance last season, Kempton 3 miles around there seems to suit him really, really well. A little bit below par at Cheltenham, there might have been a few reasons for that. I wouldn't necessarily put it down to a dislike of the track. He's only had 1 try there, and as Henderson rightly pointed out, he's been on the go for a fair while last season, so he reckons he's grown and filled out over the summer. I know a lot of trainers say that when the horses come back after a break, but yeah, I mean, I don't actually fancy him to win this race. I fancy him. It's a strange thing to say, like I said, but I fancy him more to run a big race in the King George than this. Then if he finished third or fourth, or even second in this and ran an encouraging race, then give me hope for Kempton. But I'm looking elsewhere for the winner of this. I don't know what Ted thinks of a Long Run.
And Eddie, are you opposing him as well?
I would have to at the prices. There's 2 ways of looking at this. If you believe that he's going to be a major player of the likes of King George's or Ryanair Chases or Gold Cups, then he's an absolute shoo-in in a handicap off 158, because you've got to run up to a mark of near 170 to be competing in any of those. Having said that, I take Nick's point of view. I think he's a massive strapping individual. He'll probably come on a lot for the run, and with proven form at Kempton, the King George, I think, is probably going to be his more likely target. So there's no reason to suggest he shouldn't win this race and win it easy. Nonetheless, I think later on in the season there'll be bigger fish to fry, and I think he'll run honourably, but at the price I'd have to take him on.
Okay, well, if we're looking further down the list, we've got Great Endeavour in as second favourite. David Pipe was dead keen on this horse in the stable tour, and I mean, his dad farmed this race in the past, Nick. Well,
absolutely, you've got it spot on. I mean, this meeting is well known in the past for being a Pipe and David Johnson benefit. They used to cream off winners here, left, right and centre. It looks like Great Endeavour's going to be their chosen one. Won really well in the plate last season, and I think he's up about £7 for that. Probably in a better race now, but he's had very few runs over fences, so he's unexposed. And as the representative from the Pipe and Johnson squad, then you'd have to take him very seriously.
And would he be one you'd be interested in, Ed?
I couldn't rule him out winning, but again, you know me, Sam, I like to look for a little bit of value. He's 5 to 1. He's up £7 to 142. So yeah, he's got every chance. He's going to get in here off 10 stone 4 if Poquelin stays in, but he is priced accordingly again. So I'd rather, if you think he's going to be a good prospect for the future, look to back him for Ryanair Chase at 25 to 1 or 33 to 1 for something else than get stuck in it around the 9 to 2, 5 to 1 mark for this. Okay,
so looking at some of the bigger priced horses then, where would you be looking?
Well, there's 2 that float my boat in this contest. One of them is Mad Max, another Nicky Henderson representative. He's around the 12 to 1 mark. He's officially rated 157, and again, we're taking it that Poquelin does stay in to keep the weights down. He'll be running off 11 stone 5. Now, the racing weight of that, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. He's an absolutely massive individual. I was lucky enough to go to Nicky Henderson's yard, 7 Barrows, and look round, and you see your binoculars and your barber shops, and then you see Mad Max, and you realise you need a step ladder to get near him. He's a massive individual. He's still got plenty of scope. I think there's plenty of improvement in him. And if you took his form last season of when he beat Summersby at Aintree on face value and compared that to, say, well, he beat Summersby by further than Size in Europe beat Summersby in the Arkle. Well, what price would Size in Europe be if he was running this race? You wouldn't be getting 12 to 1 about him. So I think there's a lot going for him. The 2 issues which you have to touch upon. Number 1 is the ground. If the ground's soft, it's very doubtful that he'll make the gig. Nicky Henderson said he's top of the ground horse. He needs it good. So there'll be a big weather watch about him. But As long as the ground's good, he'll be going there. And the other thing, if you're going to swipe at negatives, you could say the track is an issue. The only 2 times he's finished out the top 3 in his entire career have both been at Cheltenham. Now, you could argue it was the class of the race that was the reason for that, as opposed to the actual nature of the track. But nonetheless, he was finished 8th and 4th in 2 assignments there. And for such a big horse, there are issues about whether he, his balance is suited on the track. But all in all, I think he's got the class, around 12 to 1 mark. I think he's a solid candidate.
Okay, so Mad Max, the second string perhaps from the Nicky Henderson yard, Ed's fancy. Would he be one you go for as well?
Yeah, very much so. I've written about him already. Like Ted said, he's only £1 off long run on ratings. And yet his price has been masked a little bit by all the furore around long run, and he's still hanging out there at 12 to 1, which I think is a really decent price. And yeah, I'll take Ted's point on board that maybe he hasn't excelled at Cheltenham, but on the flip side of that, he was running an absolute stormer in the Arkle last season until he made a mistake. And I think without that, he actually would have run size in Europe close. You look at his subsequent form when he thrashed Summersby at Aintree, and a lot of people were saying at the time that Summersby was perhaps below par in that race, but perhaps he wasn't. It was just a great performance from Mad Max. There is difficulties with the horse. He has been very difficult to keep sound, and apparently he has wind problems. And for a horse of that size, you probably, he's not an easy horse to train. But there's nobody better at this type of horse than Nicky Henderson. And in terms of ability, he's got it all. And if you could guarantee a bit of good ground at Cheltenham a week on Saturday, then I think 12 to 1's a more than reasonable price for him. Okay, so very positive vibes for Mad Max. Anything else at big prices you like, Nick? Yeah, I think, Ted's going to talk about Noland in a minute, well, I'll let Ted make the case for that. But, Poquelin is probably going to run off top weight, and I imagine Paul Nicholls will use an amateur to take a bit of weight off him. He ran brilliantly in this last season on ground that really did go right against him. It was quite a bit of a quagmire on the day and really suited Tranquil Sea. Didn't suit Poquelin one iota. Still ran a stormer to finish second. He goes really, really well at this track, and he's developed into a top-class horse. He won the Boyle Sports last season, second in the Ryanair behind a rejuvenated Albertus run. And the major advantage of him is that he's already had a run this season, so he comes here race fit, and it was a really good run as well, second behind Monet's Garden in the old roan at Aintree. Now we all know what Monet's Garden is like round there. So to run him close was an excellent effort. And it wouldn't particularly bother me if Ruby did desert this horse, because he's a decent price, and he'll probably remain a decent price with a stable amateur on board. But everything points, again, it's ground related. I'd prefer to see good quick ground there for him. But I think with his course record and his class, I don't see why he shouldn't run a big race, and I could see him definitely finishing in the frame. Yeah, interesting contender around the 14 to 1 mark. Now, Ed, let's make the case for Noland.
Well, Noland, now this is a horse who will need soft ground to turn up. So I'm going to go for, Mad Max is a good ground horse. Noland won't run if there's no word soft somewhere in the going description. But he's been dropped £8 to 157, having been off the track for 2 years now. And instantly, well, that's going to put alarm bells in most anti-post punters' brains. But nonetheless, he's priced accordingly for that. You can get 25 to 1 with a standout price at the moment on him. He's off a mark of 157, which would give him a racing weight of around 11 stone 5. And the mooting is that Ruby Walsh could be taking the ride on him. He loves Cheltenham. Look, I mean, he's won a Supreme Novice Hurdle. He's finished third in an Arkle. He's won another contest there. Got solid form. Would love soft ground. And he is a massive price. The big issue is the layoff. That is the key thing. But Paul Nicholls showed with Tyrannis last season in the Ingento chase.
Yeah, if anyone can get them back.
If anyone can get them back after 2 years, he's going to be able to. And just the key point, I just think, is the price. He's 25 to 1. There's no way you're going to get a former Cheltenham Festival winner with the names P.F. Nicholls and R. Walsh next to his name going off at 25 to 1 in a handicap. That just won't happen. I could see him going off single figures, especially if Ruby Walsh commits to him and there's an absolute downpour a couple of days before. So the chances are one of them won't run out of Mad Max or Noland, depending on the ground, but they would be the two
I go with. Yeah, Mad Max and Noland for Ed, and Nick, your two would be?
Yeah, I'd go with Mad Max as well, and I think Poquelin will run another big race.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. And do stay switched on to Racing Post TV throughout the winter for more big race previews.